Do I break up with my BF without giving him a proper explanation, or should I talk things out? I have been in a relationship for 2 months. It has been the healthiest relationship ever, and he is such a great guy with great intentions. He is the sweetest. The thing is that in a certain situation that involves a third person, he has been acting very immature and kinda disrespecting me. My best friend and him are distant cousins who didn't know each other until I introduced them. Since then they have gone out almost every day. Not suspecting anything romantic between them, but they are emotionally invested in each other. My best friend is more TBH. The fact that my boyfriend doesn't realize that this whole situation is disrespectful and too much, makes me question his maturity and how he would react in similar situations. This situation also makes me question how their friendship will impact my relationship long term. Meanwhile, my boyfriend doesn't really realize that this whole dynamic is disrespectful. He does things with no harm, but the fact that he doesn't realize, upsets me and convinces me he is immature. If I talk about this to my boyfriend, I am convinced that he would stop hanging out with my best friend. He loves MW too much, and I know he would do anything for us to be together, and there's a very small chance that he would refuse to. What bothers me, is that if I talk to him about it, he could tell my best friend what we talked about, and I've already told my best friend about this and she was offended, lol. So I don't want her to know about it. On the other hand, I feel like it would be useless. Even if he decides to stop hanging out with her, it will still impact my relationship. They both are a big part of my life, and even if I tell my boyfriend and he stops hanging out with her, their friendship will still impact my relationship. I feel like this dynamic will haunt me forever and it stresses me out. So maybe just breaking up with him is the best solution. But what do I tell him? I love him too much, and I really have been thinking that I found my person, but his behavior is childish. This dynamic with my best friend will always be present, and his immaturity will come up in other situations too. The idea of me breaking up with him destroys me, but continuing this relationship stressed and tolerating the disrespect from both sides isn't a solution either. Comment. You're scared your boyfriend has feelings for his cousin? What? What in the Alabama is this? Maybe they're just family and are finally getting to know each other and wish to know each other better. Why would your boyfriend be in love with his cousin? So then you have no reason to be uncomfortable. It's his family. It seems like you just hate the fact that he's talking to other girls than you, which is a you problem. He did nothing wrong. You gotta work on yourself and stop being jealous about stupid things like that. It's his literal cousin. Okay. It's a long-lost cousin who he didn't know of and wants to get to know. I don't know what the issue is with wanting to get to know a family member you didn't previously know about. That is completely normal. The fact you're considering breaking up with him over this is insane. Next story 2. My ex-GF told me that she didn't mean to end our 3-year relationship over text, she did it because she was angry. My ex and I had problems in the last months of our 3-year relationship. Our fights became more frequent. She ultimately felt that I wasn't doing enough for our relationship, and I felt that she didn't respect my needs for space in order to support her and our relationship in a sustainable way. Because of this and some stressful, non-relationship events that happened to her recently, she wasn't sure if she wanted to celebrate her birthday with me. However, when I asked if I could make a dinner reservation for us that night, 5:30 p.m., she agreed as long as our relationship conflicts didn't affect it. On her birthday we agreed to leave from my place at 4:30 p.m. since I live closer to the restaurant. Around 11 a.m., she texted me asking if she could bring stuff over in case we felt good about spending the night together. I replied that I would prefer to spend the night at her place because mine was messy and I would like to clean up before anyone came over. After this, a fight started. She was triggered by my response and felt that this was a dynamic shift in our relationship. Specifically, she thought we were in a place where we were comfortable sharing in each other's messes. I felt that this was another case of her not respecting my expressed needs and that it wasn't a shift in our relationship. I was asking for one night not spent at my place. For context, we almost always ended up spending time together at my place, whether it was after work, on the weekend, whenever. Typically I asked where she wanted to meet, and she would say my place. Recently, I had been asking for us to have a more scheduled time of when we're going to spend time together. I realized that our current habits were causing me to feel tired and anxious because I didn't have enough time to recover energy or get chores done. She pushed back against any changes because she felt like she wasn't asking too much. After a couple hours of arguing over text, I realized I was too angry to discuss appropriately, and told her I couldn't continue to argue, but we could plan another day to resolve things. She said she didn't think she could go to dinner unless we resolved the fight first, so we compromised to talk in person before going to dinner. However, around 3 p.m., 1.5 hours before we agreed to talk again, she texted me asking to cancel the reservation and re-engaged the argument. I expressed how this made me angry that she was not respecting the agreement we made, and said I didn't want to talk to her the rest of the day. She replied, "I don't want to be with you anymore." I texted her the next day asking to meet because we had plans that night, and I wasn't sure how we would handle those. She said she was too angry to meet. The following day, I requested to meet again and she obliged. She was still very angry and doubled down on the breakup, saying I mean what I say. We met recently, about a month since the breakup, and she told me that she was furious that I gave up on fixing things on her birthday, and she took that to mean I didn't care about our relationship. I shared my view that it was clear I cared. I made the reservation and compromised for her to feel good about going, and she disrespected the agreement we made and decided to cancel the dinner, so I felt justified in believing that she couldn't meet my needs that day. She went on to say that she didn't mean to break up with me over text and that she was just so angry that entire weekend and that's why she said those things. However, I still feel like she hasn't accepted her role in this. She blames me for breaking a boundary by having a fight on her birthday, and she says that I should have been able to take a few hours to calm down and then figure things out. She also seemed to be mad at me for having anger problems but doesn't see what's wrong with how she handled her anger. How can I help her realize I am not the only one at fault here? Next story 3. My boyfriend and I have a hard time resolving conflict. He broke up with me. Boyfriend and I are having a hard time during arguments. He broke up with me out of nowhere and I'm confused. TLDR, my boyfriend and I have a hard time resolving conflict because he says I'm too demanding and it overwhelms him. He broke up with me but says we can probably be together in the future and won't remove photos of me and him on social media. My boyfriend says I'm too demanding. I've tried to be less overwhelming because I've noticed he completely shuts down when I suggest any options to do intimate things like go on dates or post each other on social media. I know it's very superficial, but he's so resistant to the idea and it makes me want him to do it even more. We've also been dating for 2 years and I just felt like at this point it should be okay for us to make the relationship obvious and do fun couple stuff. Anyway, this last argument was bad. A coworker of mine shared a story about her and her ex and how toxic the relationship was, and I was scared because it sounded way too similar to how my boyfriend and I interact, in that when I bring my feelings up, I feel like there's no willingness to compromise and that he stonewalls me and then gives me the silent treatment. I brought it up to him and after hours of talking it seemed like I was able to get the reassurance I needed from him that we are doing the best we can and that we will be better at resolving conflict. But the conversation was exhausting for him and I could tell because he can get very defensive and I seek validation like a crazy person. Hence, why I'm writing a Reddit thread. So usually our arguments go for so long because I feel like I haven't received the validation I need and I basically beat him over the head until he does give it to me and then in his words feels like a bitch or dog or like I'm making him roll over like a dog. The next day, I asked him what we should do for his birthday since it was coming up and he said nothing, so I said okay, can we do a dinner just me and you? I had been asking him for weeks what he has been wanting to do so I could plan, so since he said nothing I thought it would be a perfect time to do a date. He said he would rather do it with friends involved and I said well I would love to do something intimate with you because we hang out with your friends a lot and I feel like since this is a special occasion, this could be perfect for one-on-one thing. I also had the perfect plans too since he said nothing. He said no and I got upset and said okay well I think you should just do something with your friends separately and we can do something on our own, and he said no. And I can see why he was upset because I wasn't being fair, but I was just hurt. Anyway, he said he had to rethink the entire relationship because I was hijacking his birthday to push my agenda into wanting to go on a date. And that I was making it all about me. He completely ignored me and I called nonstop because I was so confused. We had been good and just earlier in the conversation he said he had gotten me candy that he thinks I would like. But he said he needed space, but I didn't give it to him because I was in so much distress from him saying he was possibly or possibly not going to break up with me. The next day we talked since he said he would, and basically all of our problems came up in the conversation. He says I demand too much from him. That he was held at gunpoint to post pictures of us on Instagram. That my demands for him to stop talking to his ex were not okay because his ex is one of the few childhood friends he has. Which I understand because he doesn't have many friends or family. And I only ask that he stop talking to this certain ex because they have an unhealthy bond. She cheated on him and was a horrible person to him, he says, so I just don't understand why she keeps him around. I've later found out that she's actually friends with all her exes and that it's a normal thing for some people, my BF says. Anyway, all the demands I ask for, like the dates, the Instagram posts, and the stop talking to your ex, has made him completely shut down. I told him I didn't want to break up and I was so confused, and he said he had to do this for him. I asked if he could just remove the photos of me on his profile since I didn't want him to feel forced, and he said no because they're nice photos. So no, I'm so extra confused. I feel like I'm going crazy. I guess I need advice on where I went wrong and if my demands are really unreasonable.